The following podcast is audio.
Wow.
Sorry.
You had that in the chamber? That was your big...
No, I didn't have it in the chamber.
You literally was like, I got one. And then...
did I actually say I've got one?
Yeah.
That's the mislead.
Yeah.
I should have said I'll try one improv style.
Yeah, well, you did.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the way, we don't know when this is coming out, so we do want to say to President Ryan...
you're going through
Can you name
two.
me the succession?
You're going through. I can only go through Speaker of the House. No, and you did already.
I don't even... Is Speaker of the House third?
Third, yeah.
Oh. You know what the fourth guy is?
Someone funny.
Quiet guy in the house. Quiet guy. Guy doesn't make much noise in the house.
Really, that's nice.
Hey, I learned two words.
We could use that. We could use some quiet leadership right now.
I learned two words this week.
Yeah.
Voluble and convivial. I was reading a book about the history of Fantagraphics, and Gary Groth said it in conversation. It's one of those oral history books. He goes, he was very voluble and he was very convivial.
Wow.
I was very impressed, and I want to start slipping those words in, but now I have forgotten what they mean. I think of voluble as being strong. Voluble, like...
I think more of a I'm going to go with it's more... easy, more explosive, more...
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like like from the word volcano?
Yeah, sure, volcano, yeah.
And then the other word, I always think of meaning like, pleasant and talking nicely.
What was the other one?
Convivial.
Yeah, convivial I think of as that.
So, you have to excuse me tonight, Josh, because I feel a little voluble, but that doesn't mean that I won't be able to be convivial.
Right.
This is what I want to start. You know that guy who wrote Cavalier and Clay?
No.
You don't? Michael Chabon?
Oh, okay, sure. I know.
I haven't read anything
Michael
by
Chabon.
him. People who know good writing have read him, and he uses words like New Yorker words, beginning to end.
Right. That's what makes him literature.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why aren't we more associated with literature?
Because we can't get past convivial.
And by the way, we wrote this bit previously to the podcast.
That's right.
And I told you that last line.
Tweaking.
That last line is weak.
Yeah, I know.
You think just calling back convivial is the way to end the bit?
I thought it was the blackout line, but you forgot to black out.
I still am fascinated by the news stories where they always have to have the, tied up in a button. And that's the kind of call that helps all of us. I don't know what the story would be, but there's some kind of pun from the story.
You know what? Speaking of puns, there's this week is 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper. So it's because I remember when it was the 20th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper 30 years ago, and like every single newscaster, it was 20 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play.
Oh my
and
God!
And every 10 years, it was 30 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. So now,
I hope they don't say
now it was 30 years ago today. Since it was 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. That was somewhere between Cosby and Cronkite. I was doing. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, you did have
the Jell-O pudding. Put that down, Rudy. I don't know what I was doing.
It was I don't care what you were doing. You were in the pocket with it.
Yes, I committed.
But that's why they say half of newsreaders commit suicide.
Really?
Because of it's really hard to agree with to dumb yourself down in a teleprompter for too long.
Right. It's just at some point you have to break free.
You have to break through. Now, I was in Canada once. I'm up there a lot because I'm very popular there.
Very popular.
Very popular. And
he leaves the country to do a State of the Industry address.
I don't like to plug my stuff, but I told you, why can't we have a chyron that runs during the whole podcast?
I thought it was.
Chyron is a word, I think, from the 50s.
Yeah, now it's lower thirds, we call them now.
That's right. Well, that's the thing that bothers Susan, my wife, and me a lot, is how the lower third, why does it have to be so much a big percentage of the TV? It's like halfway up, they're telling you it's MSNBC. I still haven't gotten used to the fact that there's stuff on my TV. This is part of my new Andy Rooney for the next generation. Andy Rooney 2.0. I don't like it when they have words on the screen.
I love that they never replaced Andy Rooney.
Replaced him?
They just was like, yeah, all right, he's gone.
He's still.
We're just gonna put commercials there.
Have you heard my dead Andy Rooney? You ready? Why do your fingernails still grow after you're dead? I bet my eyebrows are really out of control now. 'Cause I'm in a coffin. No? Too soon? Too late? Too irrelevant?
I just wanted to see how long you could talk.
I don't like the afterlife. I liked living.
I used to think that the 3 minutes I had on TV seemed like an eternity. Little did I know.
Little did I know. It really brings the point home. I can't do Andy Rooney's voice, though.
Neither of us can.
Why? It's more like, it's kind of like Paul Harvey.
I love that we spend just huge swaths of time on dead people. We did Foster Brooks. We did Red Buttons last week.
My first wife, Burb, died from eating poison mushrooms. And I had the joke by saying that my second wife died because from being hit over the head with a shovel because she didn't want to eat the mushrooms. And they said I was offensive. So did Seth Rogen call you this week and say that he's very impressed with my growth as a human being? Because it takes a big man like me to admit when they're wrong. And that's never happens on Twitter, Josh.
You admitting you're wrong?
No, I admit when I'm wrong because I'm wrong often.
Right.
And I realize I don't want my Q rating to go down or whatever it is.
Right.
But some people, they will not admit anything they did, even though they will only even erase the tweet where they say the thing. And they'll say, I never said that.
All right. Yeah, that's not cool.
But I, on the other hand, no, I haven't gotten a call from him about work or a barbecue.
Right.
When do you guys hang out together?
We done on Twitter, and you almost ruined that.
I know. I ruined one of the few pleasures you have. Now,
I know so few stars, Andy. I know so few stars.
When that happened, I was like, the slowest Columbo in the world. Why is Seth talking to Josh? And then my mind started to move. It started to click around the mental Rolodex.
Yeah, but I think everything's good now.
I think everything's good.
When I tweeted today's episode, which is where we covered that, he liked it.
That's good.
So that's a good sign.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay, I don't want to ask for too much.
Okay.
But can I go from mocking the movie Neighbors to being maybe a small part? I'm not asking for a large
I think
recurring character.
That might be a giant leap for mankind that you're making right there.
Is that a bridge too far?
I think he followed you on Twitter, Andy. I think live with that for a while.
He did
live
follow me
with
on
that
Twitter.
for a while.
And anybody who says that they don't get thrilled by a celebrity following them is a liar. I got followed by Klaus Barbie.
Wow.
I just watched a special about him. Not a special.
And already you've integrated him.
Yeah, no, but anybody who doesn't admit that they get starstruck or whatever, maybe some people don't, but most people do. Then you have to put it into perspective. Like, I could, if you're not well in the head,
right.
Which a lot of people online these days are pointing out to me.
Yeah.
No, they're pointing out to me. I should get help. They're saying,
Yes.
But if you're a healthy person, you have a grandiose thought,
right.
And then you go, whoa. Let's back it off a little bit. Like I told Susan a joke about a comic. I don't know his name, but his joke about David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam killer.
Don't do someone's joke we can't cite.
I've never been able to find out who it is.
Okay. Well,
So maybe someone would. This is why people have podcasts.
Aha, there you go.
But his thing was, if your dog tells you to kill somebody, that's when you're supposed to say bad dog.
It's a good joke.
So write that in. Whoever wrote that joke.
If that's your joke, blame Andy.
Right. Now this is our first lull. I've noticed that you know what this is like a fence. You did take fencing or no?
I did take fencing.
Yeah, but you took the Weasley kind.
What do you mean?
You didn't take saber.
No, I was a foil. And I'm still on this podcast, still a foil.
What kind of a person? So our show is a contest about who can stop it from just stopping. Who can keep it? You know what I'm saying? Like, neither one of us is the host. We've had a lot of there's a lot of huzzerai online when we did our Who Should Host contest.
All right. Third party. People kept checking third party. I don't even know what that means.
If we could get Jerry Seinfeld to host it, we wouldn't need the podcast.
Oh.
Now I heard you were on David Feldman's show.
You heard me on David Feldman's show, or
Yeah.
you heard I was on David Feldman's show?
At first, you told me that you were on, and I don't. And you know, people say they never listen to themselves. I do listen to myself, but not much.
Have you listened to this show yet?
No.
Really? You should. You really should. I really
Because I'm
think
so great?
We could.
Because it's so great. Oh, thank you, Josh.
Yeah, it's for your self-image.
Well, then I want to save it up and do it near Christmas.
Binge yourself.
Oh, that's the best. I don't like to listen to myself, but I'm sure I'd love to binge listen.
Yes.
Well, in my estimation, and people can disagree with me, and people aren't. Why do I assume? Maybe no one's ever going to listen again. Why do I assume we have an audience now? How is our audience doing?
Oh, we're doing good, I think.
How many hits do we have?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about it.
But do we have over a million people?
Let's be like Netflix about our rating.
Do we have over? Oh, they lie?
They just don't tell anyone.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But someone said I opened up every show with "Am I On," which
was only true for the first three. I mean, come on,
right.
come on.
But it does sound like a great hook.
Yes.
It reminds me of "Is This Thing On?"
Which why not start a show with what you'd say if something fails in vaudeville?
Well, that would be apropos of my whole shtick. I'm the guy who hates himself.
Oh.
So you were on David Feldman's show. By the way, David Feldman is the funniest man in the world. And he also does a thing that very few people can do. Jonathan Katz can do it. He can do it. And I can't think of any other names right now. He slows it down.
Yeah. No,
he takes control of it.
Yes.
And it's hilarious.
He's got that Lewis Black sort of command of whatever space he's occupying.
And dry.
Yes.
Very dry.
Yes. And he'll use that against you. In fact, he used that against me a couple times while I was on his show.
I loved it.
Just trying to trick me.
I loved it because, first of all, he loves Thought Spiral, the show. Is that what it's called? Thought Spiral.
The
show.
Yes. Yes, he was super nice about the show.
Yeah, and I don't think he was making it up.
No, he said it enough times that I bought into it.
And then I'd never heard anybody.
And we talked about you, which I know is also a good hook for you.
Here's the thing. When people talk about me, I feel like it can't be happening. It's like a dream. Because sometimes on Tom Sharpling's show, The Best Show, did you know about that he was mocking us?
No, but why not?
But he's pretending to be very angry that I have a podcast because you're supposed to clear him through him.
Right.
And so the first thing he says is, now you have a podcast with an Elvis impersonator?
Oh,
and
good.
so that was good.
That's good.
And he said my name on the radio, and I got very excited.
There
so when
you
I
go.
heard you say my name to David Feldman, you could have even slammed me then. But you were what you said though was I never heard. For example, I thought I was like a social. Was it animal? Social animal?
I think he asked if you're a social animal
Yeah,
or a
and I
social
had to
creature.
think- I thought, oh yeah, I'm pretty good socially, but then I realized, no, I'm not good socially.
you're not.
And not only am I not good socially,
And what did I say? He said, well, how did you get Andy into a social situation? I said, you give him a set.
you also said I come over here at 9 and I leave by 10:30.
Well, that's because he said, don't change. He said, don't change the podcast, which clearly we've taken that advice.
And
I said, I can't really see it ever being anything other than Andy coming over at 9 and leaving a little after 10 on a Monday night.
it was really cool. Both of you guys are good with words, which I was very impressed with.
Well, we've chosen that as our life. So.
Yeah, but I never thought, Josh, I never thought I was a broadcaster until we started this show. I mean, I knew I could talk on podcasts, but did I have that Jack Parr?
Nope.
Am I the kind of guy that you turn on and you go, I'd love to spend the evening with that guy next to him on the couch?
I think people will turn it on and go, oh man, my life is so much easier than Andy Kindler's life. It is so hard to be Andy Kindler.
Well, thanks for burying the lead. I don't know what that means. People say it all the time. When they say bury the lead, why do they spell it L-E-D-E? Or am I getting it wrong?
That's how it's spelled. I don't, fancy press 18th century bullshit.
You mean below the fold?
Yeah, all that stuff, all that thing that kids aren't going to understand.
Harry Shearer had a show called The News Hole. Did you know what The News Hole was?
No.
It's just something that you stick in into a paper. I still don't know what it is. It's
You
like
just made a
the
bunch
news
of hole gestures is what you just did.
I should never be asked to. You don't see me on those shows where they want something explained more in depth.
I worked on a show with Harry Shearer once. My first job on network TV ever.
And what was the show?
It was the worst idea for a show ever.
Whose idea was it?
It was NBC's show, and I was still in Minneapolis at the time. And this was the cast of the show. This was the cast.
I love these stories.
This was the
are my
cast of the
favorite.
show. Carl Reiner,
Oh my gosh, great people.
Harry Shearer,
Wonderful.
Meryl Marco,
Hilarious.
Jeff Cesario.
Great. No, you thought I was going to
You
go.
almost left him out.
No, I know, but you know what? I was spacing. What happened was that's the longest period of time I've been able to concentrate on what someone else was saying.
That was pretty good.
So when you got to Jeff Cesario, I was already thinking about what
It's
might
my
come
turn.
back.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
right.
but the premise of the show was these are clips from stuff that was on TV this past week. That was it. That was their show, and they thought that other networks were going to give them their clips.
But you mean it was like a best week ever type thing?
Kind of, yeah. It was kind of that, but this was 1991,
right?
I think. You know?
And no shows gave you the clip. It was before the Daily Show.
Yeah, they weren't doing the fair use thing. They thought the other networks would happily put their show onto NBC, and then NBC went, well, wait, why are we promoting other network shows so the whole thing just kind of broke down.
So it was a talk soupy type thing.
It was kind of that. It was kind of like here's clips from this week's
And then what would
TV.
you say after the clip?
What would I say?
This is by the way, I practiced on my interviewing skills in the last week between podcasts. I think I've gone from someone who doesn't listen to anybody to I call the prosecuting attorney.
Okay. You do.
It's like too many questions.
You do.
And then what did they do that for? And then what happened in that situation?
So everyone had their angle, and I don't even remember. Like, I think Jeff was TV guy.
Okay, right. You know, I was TV guy on The Daily Show for Best Another Story for 6 months.
Well, we beat you to it.
Yeah, you did.
But I actually wrote for Jeff's segment from Minneapolis. But the other Josh Weinstein was on that show too. That was his first Guild credit too. So that was like when the credits would run, there would be a written by Josh Weinstein in the credits, but it wasn't me because I was a consultant who didn't get a credit.
So he for those of you who didn't listen to David Feldman's podcast, and look, I understand the man is exceedingly Jewish.
Yo,
I love it.
Oh yeah,
but
sure.
for the average goy in town,
yeah, it's like high holiday services listening to him.
And so I forgot what I was going to say. Now, people have noticed online that I forget what I'm going to say, but it's happening less now. But what did I just say? Do you know what I just said?
We were talking about the other Josh Weinstein and the J.
Oh, yeah. No, he just beat you.
Yes, so he's the reason I'm Jay Elvis is that other guy.
But you know what
became Simpsons Josh Weinstein.
Well, I didn't know until I listened to you. And this is what we're going to do, by the way. This show will exclusively be us talking about our other appearances on other podcasts and the reviews that we've had. That's all we're going to do.
Absolutely.
What was it? Oh, yeah. I didn't know he was named after Elvis Costello. That I didn't know. That was news
wrinkle?
to me.
Yes.
New to me.
Yes.
Which I could see. I liked all the Elvises. Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Elvis Costello.
Uh-huh.
And what's the other Elvis?
Elvis Mitchell.
Elvis Mitchell I like.
Elvis
I also like
Stoico.
I don't know who that is.
Skater, Canadian figure skater, Elvis Stoico.
Elvis is Everywhere is an amazingly great song by Mojo Nixon.
Right. There you go. That's every single
There's
Elvis.
got to be another Elvis. All right, we'll be right back after these commercials that don't exist. Right. Why wouldn't we take commercials? I'm going to give you an example of the kind of hosts that we were looking for. Hey, do you need a website? Why does that person have that accent?
I don't know, but carry through.
Hey, you need a website? Come on down to Oval Space. At Oval Space, we create everything that you need, all the tools for a website. And it's not Squarespace because it's oval shaped and it's less money.
This has been First Thought Theater with Andy Kindler. Come back next week for the first thing that comes to Andy's mind.
All right, look. I'm going to take over now as host.
Okay. All right.
Now,
I don't have the power of yes and tonight.
No, but you said
know
that
what it is.
Well, here's the thing. You said no. That's not what it is. What it is that we should be more comfortable. A lot of people, anybody can get a podcast where they're like, "Here's what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
Here's something entertaining.
All right. Here's our focus.
Right.
Yeah.
But nobody is willing. What we're doing is. So like we're Andy Kaufman.
It's that brave. It's certainly that brave, yeah.
We're like flying we're like jumping. Is it jumping without a net or is it flying without a net?
Either way, it kind of
Yeah.
ends up the same.
We're not afraid.
Either way, you got no net.
We're not afraid to have dead spaces, but the truth is we both are afraid to have dead
We're
spaces.
terrified to have dead spaces.
But we've never
That's
done this
part of
before.
being a
This is new.
comedian is going for no dead spaces.
Well, this could be like if it was a Spalding Gray show. Maybe I shouldn't talk about him because he's not here anymore.
You couldn't get to suicide. You couldn't
Why
say
would?
it.
Because I love Spalding Gray. I saw the documentary about Spalding Gray.
Yeah.
I wanted to pull out of doing a joke about Spalding
That's
Gray.
right, but he committed.
Right.
That was like Foster Brooks almost.
Yeah.
He committed.
My first wife.
He's not here right now.
I don't really understand the Foster Brooks phenomenon. And we'll be back with more Andy Bash's old-timey comedians.
Yes.
What were these Ritz brothers?
They were the worst. The Ritz brothers were really bad.
I don't think I've even watched them.
It is just like,
Were they Cracker? Were they Cracker sponsored?
No, they weren't actually. They were terrible. They were not the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the wordplay of the Marx Brothers or the physical genius, quote unquote, of the Three Stooges.
Right.
So it was like somewhere in between there, though. So it was basically like a bunch of just sort of going, why, slug, just kind of slugging each other. It wasn't like, funny, choreographed, pieces of violent ballet.
Now the other week, because I know that a lot of people I respect love the Three Stooges. Like maybe you love the Three Stooges.
I really don't. I never did.
But Drew Friedman loves the Three Stooges, and
Yeah.
I always found it to be. But I can't tell if I didn't like them or I didn't like my childhood. You know what I mean? Because I associate them with depression of like watch. I can't explain it, but just they're hitting each other.
Yeah, no, I hated it when I was a kid. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't understand why they were hitting each other.
Yeah.
Like why are they making a movie about these people who don't like each other at all? I don't they're stopping the story to hit each other.
Right.
So no, I would watch because it was on and it wasn't, it was either that or televangelists, which is pretty,
Who was that? I used to love this televangelist. Not Wally George. He's not televangelist. But there used to be a guy out in the Orange County who was
Schuler.
Not Schuler. It was another. This is going to be useless. This guy would go, get on the phones. Like he would like yell for donations.
And that was, as a kid, you loved that?
No. I moved up when I moved out to L.A. I started to, and a lot of people say, Andy, when did you first know that you would have a podcast 50 years from this point? After everyone else literally had a podcast.
It was 50 years ago today. Andy Kindler taught the pod to play.
No, it was when I first moved out to L.A. I loved for a while talk radio, even though it was terrible. I loved talk radio. I loved
Right.
Dr. David Viscott.
Dr. David Viscott was creepy goodness.
I know.
And he had a TV show. He was the one he had that late night radio TV show.
That's
on
exactly
Saturday
what he
nights.
had. The Tom Snyder lit.
Yeah. Yeah, very weird. Like kind of like talk radio, like Oliver Stone's talk radio. It had that kind of feeling to it.
That's a great movie with
Eric Bogosian.
Oh, I love that movie, and it's based on a true story.
Yes,
of a guy
in
who
Houston, I think, got killed. Yeah,
but
a guy who got
But Viscott, I was in a comedy duo, as you know. But I don't know if you know that. Have you met my comedy partner, ex-comedy partner? I don't mean like we broke up in a bad way. I mean, let's not.
Right. You broke up because there was no future.
What happened was he flew to Los Angeles, and it came on the news that he was fired when he was giving a speech. What I'm doing now is I'm trying to say I fired my ex-comedy partner like James Comey got fired.
Oh, so it kind of came out like your ex-partner was James Comey.
Yeah. That would have been funnier than my version. But
Kindler and Comey. We're here. This is Andy, my friend.
So we used to do.
Hey, James Comey.
That would be funny though, because that would be like a Mutt and Jeff type thing.
Especially with his height. He's like 6'8". You're like 5.
Hey,
less.
I would open up with, "How's the weather up there?"
Right, there you go.
Which I still think is very funny.
And he'd say, "I'm not at liberty to say."
I don't really understand that joke. Are you saying the person's so tall that they have another weather system?
That is the gist of that joke.
So, I don't know. I'm angry at people as tall as James Comey. Because,
Is that
wrong?
Are you sorting them by height?
Yeah.
The people
Let's
you're
start by
angry
height.
at?
Trump's tall.
Yeah.
I hate him.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
All I need is 2 examples for my... but David Viscott...
You hate the front court of the Washington Wizards? You
know
hate...
the Washington Wizards, are they the ones who play the Globetrotters?
No, that's the Generals.
Now, I have to tell you, I'm very sad that I haven't watched 1 second of the sport of basketball. And I normally love the basketball playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled when LeBron won last year. So,
well, there's still the finals.
I will be watching the finals.
Yeah, and there's still LeBron. So,
yeah, and I predict. I like to predict on tweets. I predict everything on tweets.
yeah.
So then,
You're like a playoff fan. You seem to baseball is playoff time. You like get involved at playoff time with baseball.
well, I'm a Mets fan, so sometimes I don't get involved at all.
So not at all. Yeah.
But no, I do.
But but tennis is like the thing you love, right?
Tennis is the thing that I've come to love. But when I was a kid, I watched baseball all year long. I collected baseball cards. But me and the wife love Federer, so it's all Federer. Who
It's
wins,
all Federer based.
and he
your
won his
tennis love.
18th major, which they. And I yell all the time because at the you know how I yell at people in general, and
Yes.
like I'm judgmental of people. Well, the tennis people I'm really judgmental of because they were like, oh, he'll never win again, and they love to kick people when they're down, like they kicked us when we were down.
That's right. They said you'd never do anything past age 36 like they do with Roger Federer.
And the thing that's even worse about it, there's no specific reason why I couldn't do anything.
Right. They're just like, there's just no chance. At
There's
this
never
point.
been a comedian who's been funny past age 36.
That's right.
But we know Rodney Dangerfield started back.
Yes. Rodney
He was
had
Jack Roy.
Right. He had 2 careers. One where everyone hated him, and one where everyone hated him, but he was successful.
Oh, are you saying that it was a completely different act?
It seems like it was a lot of the same kind of act, but he was a joke-buying guy in both cases, I think.
I really feel like there was probably nobody funnier than him. And he had this like premise that he would do. To me, this made me laugh so much where he says, I'm okay now, but last week was rough. To me, I don't care what follows that.
Right.
It's really good.
Just because it's the premise for anything.
I want to button up David Viscott, though. So David Viscott, because a lot of people around the country won't know David Viscott like we know him.
Right.
He was a talk radio psychologist. And when I was in the comedy team of Andy and Bill, we would do Dr. David, but we called him Dr. David David. My name is Dr. David David, and the name of the show is Talk to Me, where I give you a chance to talk to me. And then my comedy partner was behind the screen, and he would be the voice of the caller.
Okay. So you liked this bit already just because your comedy partner was behind a screen. This was I love this bit.
I tried every maneuver to get rid of him.
Yes.
The first time I said to him, no, this will be the greatest thing ever. You'll be at the Ice House. I'll be at the Laugh Factory.
That's right. We are really a comedy team. We are a comedy organization.
Right. Then I said, no. It'll be great. You hit yourself over the head with a mallet. Right. And then when you wake up out of the coma, you say, ta-da!
I leave this mayonnaise sandwich in my car during the day.
Right.
And then you eat it.
You see how we've hit a rhythm again? I would say about a half hour ago, when I looked into your eyes, I saw the total terror that was in my eyes.
Yeah.
Because we were like, I think we're 15 minutes in and we're done.
You're feeling the second wind now.
Oh, I'm ready to go
Or the first
now.
wind, really.
So when you spend days and days and days editing this, like I hope you do,
Yes.
and no dead spots, and nothing where I look like something's wrong with me.
Well, like you said, no video.
The way you said that, how long you took with that was almost like I'm thinking.
Right.
So he would be behind the off stage doing the voice of the caller, and the bit bombed a lot.
Sure. Of course it did.
You haven't even heard the bit. How would
No.
you be able to conclude that it bombed?
I'm just putting pieces together.
And so when the bit would bomb, it was just me out on the
I'm
stage.
thinking of you doing comedy minus 30 years. Is really what's coming to mind here.
Well, I was people thought I was pretty terrible when I started, even on my own.
Yeah.
Like my first actual solo set was at a place in Torrance, California called Seymour Hams, spelled like Seymour, and then HAMMS. And it was a place where local community theater people from Torrance would gather after their shows.
And be hammy.
Right, see more of them. And I bombed. I bombed the first time I was on my own, and I went to the car and cried.
Did you? Nice.
But I don't hold it against those people.
No. But who booked you?
I may have booked myself. I think I've only booked one room, and that was Seymour Hams. But I booked Don't Quit Your Day Job when they were Don't Quit Your Day Job.
Who are now all very
Successful. Higgins, Boys, and Gruber, and then you can Google the rest of that.
Right.
But I don't see the faces of the early people.
I don't
who
think a lot of
rejected me.
people know that you are an actual LA-born comic, though. I think people think of you as an East Coast sort of dude. But you started doing comedy here in LA.
That's right. And let's forget years now. I mean, do we have to every single time we get into this remind people of how old you are? I grew up in New York, and if anybody wants to get a pencil, because a lot of people like to score this show at home. Come on, Josh. You're drinking, and I'm going boom, boom. AK-47 is back, boom. I took over.
I like to drink when there's no chance of me spitting it out, so I do it when you're talking.
Because I'm so funny.
See.
I'm so funny. People can't. Several people have died of dehydration around me. All right, be quiet. Be quiet, Andy. Be quiet, hack voice in my head. So I grew up in New York City, and I wanted to be a musician. So I moved out here, and then I started stand-up out here. And I think I'm very lucky that I started out here. And the reason why you don't ask me, because I would have had to have moved someplace else to start somewhere smaller.
Right.
You know, so I didn't even think about that. Oh my God, I'm doing it in L.A.
Right.
I may have thought, oh my God, I'm terrible.
But it's a different thing. I mean, because like I grew up in Minneapolis. When I say grew up, I mean comedy-wise.
Right. You started there.
I mean, I grew up there too, but that was, in towns that weren't L.A. or New York, it's like it was all the opener, middle, headline model clubs.
In Minneapolis too?
Yeah, there weren't showcase clubs.
Oh,
so
right,
you grew
right.
up in the 10-minute set.
Yes.
Model of comedy, where I grew up in the you become an MC, then you become a feature act, then you become a headliner.
Yeah.
So it was a different paradigm. It wasn't like keep coming up with different 10-minute sets. It was like I'm trying to build my half hour so I can.
Wow,
feature,
that's such a weird thing. I mean, not weird thing, but just it's the difference is weird.
But for us, there was also like but it was all part of that whole thing was that you go on the road right away too. In LA, you stay and you do the rooms, but in the 80s, you literally like there was work for you if you had a half hour.
Well, that's what happened to me. I was very lucky because I started in 84 and I was in a duo till 86, and then in 87 I went on the road. Did we talk about this? Yeah, with 40 weeks I was on the road. I say I was on the road 40 weeks a year, but I have come to realize that I lie about a lot of things.
I had one for I talked about this last week. I think the year before I moved out here, I went out 40 weeks to save money.
Right. So I think I did a 40-week year too. But I think I'm too easy to say things like I watch foreign films.
Right.
I'm too quick to lie about culture, especially culture. What am I talking about?
You lie about yourself. Is what you're saying.
I think I was very lucky because I wasn't thinking about, because I don't like to give advice. I mean, I really love to give advice, but I try to restrain myself. But one good piece of advice I do give people who move to LA, I say, don't worry about how long you've been here, because if you started out here, you wouldn't be measuring how long you've been here.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people who will who fudge how long they've been here like it's their age.
Are you talking about Ant?
No, I wasn't, but feel free.
Now, I always think putting a time limit clock on show business, and I call it show business only because I'm not in it.
Right.
But putting a clock on it, I think, is always a dangerous thing. But there was one person who did put a clock on it, and it worked. Was John Hamm. He gave himself 2 years' time.
Yeah.
And within that 2 years, and he said he's going back to St. Louis or he was going to stop. And Mad Men happened within that 2 year period, is what I'm trying to say.
So it worked out. But,
Yeah.
But that was at the end of a long stretch, where he finally went, okay, I'll give myself 2 more years.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Well, I would. Maybe he made the whole thing up. But the thing is, if I one more time go out for the same part as John Hamm, I can't take it anymore.
Right.
I'm not just extremely good looking, Josh. I have good comedy timing, Josh. You laugh. People can't see it because now next week, though, I am going to demand that we start with adding people to the staff, an engineer,
right,
and a studio audience, and the video part of the show.
Right. So a TV show is what you want to do.
No. I'm the guy who doesn't realize he's pitching a TV show. No. There'll also be audio. I do want to emphasize one thing that Josh did say is absolutely true. We are not charging for the show.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Finally, that's established.
Yeah, and as the show's gone along tonight, I felt it's even more important to make people know.
Make it clear.
That we will even, if you have trouble getting online, we'll come to your house.
That's right.
But I don't know what I was going to say. You said you were going to make a list of things to talk about.
Yes, I always make a list of things to talk about. I mean, just even when I don't have a podcast, I'll make a list of things.
Well, what happened? Did you go to Vegas this week? Did you go to a club?
I've been no. I talked to lawyers this week. I'm getting my second movie ready for distribution.
And this is the movie about stand-up comedy that I saw, which I loved.
Which is called I Need You to Kill.
Oh, that's good.
Starring Tom Segura, Pete Lee, Chad
hilarious.
Daniels.
This movie is great. Plus, it also captures the relationship between Chad Daniels, Tom Segura, and Pete Lee.
Yes.
It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a fun trip, and it was all put together by Louis Lee.
Louis Lee.
Who owns Acme Comedy Club in Minneapolis, who is our favorite club owner.
And I cannot believe that he will still pay me $15,000 a week.
It's amazing.
Is that what you get, Josh?
Yeah, exactly.
You get $18,000 a week?
No, I still get the 15 because
You get $25,000?
I cut him the break. I cut him the friend deal.
I was doing the reverse of the Jewish joke.
Yes.
$8. I can't give you $5. I'm not going to give you $4.
Right.
Do you think people want to hear all of my old Jewish jokes?
Jewish joke fragments, especially? I think that's really what they tune in for.
So that's that movie, and then the other movie.
He had a hat.
He had a hat is still the greatest punchline.
Paint my house.
Please. So what's that one? When you done here?
Huh?
What's the paint my house?
A guy sitting in a bar, prostitute comes up to him and goes,
I now remember. Go ahead.
I'll do anything you want for $200. And he goes, paint my house.
Is that specifically Jewish? Because we're cheap?
Well,
I'll do anything you want.
When in doubt, Jew it up, I think, when it comes to old jokes.
Also very clever, because I think that woman didn't realize that when she made the offer, she wasn't thinking about painting.
I don't think she was. I think the clever Jewish mind also plays into the punchline as well.
Jews love money.
Jews, yeah.
This is if you
says
want to
Mr.
write,
Paywall.
If you want to write down the stereotypes that you can make fun of with Jews, money, money, money. We have horns.
Right.
We control the media.
Right.
If we control the media, would Jeffrey Lord be on TV?
Hello.
So that's it. See, I want you to ask me about my week, and I'll go crazy on you.
Because you're going to talk about people who made.
I know you don't want to talk about that.
You're going to talk about Ricky Gervais. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'll just talk about. Well, I don't want to talk about Ricky Gervais to the degree that people like Ricky Gervais listen to this show.
All right.
I don't want that.
No, that's not going to happen.
I want to talk about the fact that, let's say it's not Ricky Gervais. Let's call it somebody else. Ricky Gervais.
Okay.
Isn't that the oldest
Ricky
joke in the world?
Gervais.
I don't want to say what the thing was, but the initials were. No, but it's these people, and I think a lot of people, when they have bravado and ego, it's covering up insecurity. So my joke about Ricky Gervais is that if you didn't have to have a license to be a brain surgeon, he would have already operated on about 10 people. This thing that people think that they can do something.
Right.
So he thinks in his mind he's like one of the world's greatest stand-ups.
Right.
But he can't be one of the world's greatest stand-ups just by definition of you can't do it a total of 80 times.
No, and my in fact, I was just talking to my all right, I'll say it, my Pilates instructor. And she saw Ricky Gervais live and said it was terrible. Said it was absolutely the most self-indulgent pile of shit.
She saw him recently on the Humanity Tour?
I don't know. It wasn't on this tour.
First of all, I cannot imagine a Pilates instructor going to see Ricky Gervais.
Yes, I know.
They want to keep
She's a good
things
Pilates instructor, though. I got to tell you.
No, but I mean, that's why she stay away from him.
She lets me change the name to exercises and things. So.
And remember, people who don't follow my career or don't follow this podcast or don't subscribe to one of our news brochures,
right.
I started out this whole thing loving Ricky Gervais. I thought the original Office was like the greatest show. I thought that show was so great.
It was terrific.
I watched that show with subtitles.
I thought Extras was also funny.
I also loved Extras.
And then...
So when you see, the thing is, it doesn't matter what happens in life. What matters is that the historians look back and say either I was right or all of my enemies were wrong.
Right.
That's all that matters. But I think it's amazing. But you know what? I was just thinking about that. I was thinking, like, how could you not know that you're not really doing stand-up? But you're doing stand-up. Anybody within the sound of my voice, if you want to be a stand-up comic, I don't believe in hierarchy. The first time you go to a club, you're doing stand-up is what I consider. And you could be hilarious the first time you go. But to not know that you're not comfortable on stage or you haven't achieved everything on stage. But I was thinking maybe there's no way for him to know it because he's huge and he's just there's no way for him to go out to open mic clubs.
No, there's no, I mean, obviously it's not an analogy to someone who just walks off the street and starts doing stand-up, you know?
Right, yes.
When you already have the credibility with your crowd, you know, then you're never going to have a real sense of...
Yeah, that is a curse in a way.
Well, it's a curse. I mean, it isn't a curse for him because he's never going to leave that bubble. You know, he's always going to be playing only to his fans.
He's also making...
And that could grow or shrink, you know?
Right,
but,
exactly.
You know, but if people are paying $100 a ticket and it's a bunch of bullshit, they're probably not going to do it a second time, you know?
No, but I think he has like he has rabid fans kind of. And then there's this whole other market.
Well, he's kind of in that Kevin Smith area too, where Kevin Smith isn't really a stand-up, but he can play stand-up venues because he has a crowd that's a comedy crowd, but not necessarily a stand-up crowd. You know what I mean?
And that's also why he does like a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he likes having an audience.
I like slamming somebody by asking an innocent-sounding question.
But
that's why he does the podcast, right? Because he thinks that guy really shouldn't talk so much.
Kevin Smith or Ricky Gervais? Who are we talking about?
No, Ricky Gervais. No, Kevin Smith.
Okay.
Because it's first of all, enough with the dirty talk, the dirty curse talk. You don't cotton to that, do you?
I'll be as dirty as I need to be.
Yeah, but do you always go? Do you just go? I mean, it's like using the word butter over and over. I just think the kids today. I just tell you, be clean. There's no reason why you shouldn't.
I did. Let me
finish.
As long as we're talking about Working Blue, I did in fact once meet Red Skelton, and he warned me not to work blue.
See, that's the kind of experience you can't buy.
This was La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Oh, and this was before you did stand up, or
no? I was doing stand up in La Crosse. And Red for you kids, Red Skelton didn't like the swearing. Red Skelton was very wholesome, and so I'm playing at the Radisson bar in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Red Skelton, like the next night, is playing at the Civic Center, which is like right next door, but he's staying in this hotel. And so he's been hanging out all week for some reason in this hotel. Like he came in for his gig like 4 days early, and he had like a VHS camcorder he was running around the hotel with and stuff. I'm not exactly sure what.
Oh, I wish I'd seen him.
And I'm probably 19 at this point. I'm the middle, you know, and they're going, you can't swear during the show because Red Skelton might walk in during the show and be upset. And I'm like, I can't swear because Red Skelton might walk in, you know, and I didn't even have the skill set to not swear at that point, you know, swearing.
They couldn't take one of your ammunition.
Right. They really was taking a bullet out of my gun. And And so I did the best I could, and Red didn't come in during the thing, but I did the next morning, met him in the lobby. And
had he heard about you being at the hotel?
no, but I did. But I did say, I'm one of the comedians in the thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Skelton, nice to meet you. Oh, I hope you aren't working blue. Oh. So no,
I can't believe it. It's like there's that is so like he must have been obsessed with it.
Yeah, it was like he was doing the impression of that you do of Red Skelton of himself.
And that I saw that happen at the American Comedy Awards. I don't want to brag, but I used to go to the American Comedy Awards years ago.
Yeah.
And when Steve Allen was still alive, and this could have only happened when he was still alive, he was apologizing to an 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid as they were getting our coats or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to hear all of that language. And here's a guy, Steve Allen, who championed Lenny Bruce. But towards the end of his life, he became like a...
He was not he wasn't a nice man by all accounts, really.
Even when he was putting on the different hats?
Maybe with the hats, he was nicer. He was a pompous guy, apparently. He had like a factory of people working for him, too. He had people writing books. He had
not those detective books. I was hoping that... he has detective books, right?
He wrote
wife.
like 800 books or something.
He also wrote 1,000
I did a sketch
songs.
with him on the Kinnear show once where they'll read more about, if you'd like to learn more about Steve Allen. And it was like him going, it was Kinnear going, read, blah, 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 murder in the blah, blah, blah. Late night with Steve Allen, blah, blah, blah. And it's like 10 books in, and then we pan over, and Steve Allen is feeding him the books.
Oh, that's a good bit.
So he was
why am I evaluating the bit? What is the matter with me?
It got me through the tag. But I had a friend who worked for Steve Allen for 2 days. He was supposed to go in and write jokes with Steve Allen. And the first day, and this friend it wasn't even really a friend. He was a guy I worked with who was like an old comedy writer, kind of this guy. And
that's my voice I did earlier in the podcast.
He grew up playing jazz trumpet, and then he became a comedy writer, and now he's like 50-something.
And whenever he pitched jokes, he goes...
telling me the story.
He goes, bazoo, bazoo, bazoo.
Like he came into the show mid-season that I was working on, and the first thing was like, where are the bagels? Goddamn. Like his first day, he's making
How is that different from me going into a show?
I'm just trying, why you don't want to be this guy.
Oh, okay.
But so he goes into work with Steve Allen. And he's sitting at a table with Steve Allen. and Steve Allen apparently has like this giant fruit basket that has been delivered to him. And he sits there at the table with the fruit basket next to him, and the whole day doesn't offer my friend a piece of fruit. And so my friend is like enraged. And so the next day he goes back to work with Steve Allen, and he brings his own giant bunch of bananas.
And then
sits down with them, and of course doesn't offer Steve Allen.
I'm sure Steve Allen didn't even notice the joke.
No, Steve Allen knows the joke enough to fire him that day.
Oh my! So you found out not the hard way, but from an actual person that he wasn't that nice.
Yeah, so at least according to my friend Richard, he was not that good a dude.
Well, I wrote for this is not about me bragging, but I did write for Comic Strip Live, which was a show that was hosted by Wayne Cotter.
I remember.
In the 90s. And as a joke, Mike Rowe, you know Mike Rowe?
Sure.
The hilarious Mike Rowe, not the Dirty Works guy.
Right.
He's another Mike Rowe. He's hilarious. He, as a joke, gave me a message, and it was Steve Allen's office, and he said to call back and ask for Steve. He didn't tell me it was Steve Allen's office.
Yeah.
And then I do it. He's like waiting outside the door. I do this thing. Can I speak to whatever? And I find out it's Steve Allen. I'm talking to his secretary or whatever I'm talking to, and it really was the funniest thing. I mean, you did have to be there.
I don't understand it exactly.
Okay, he was like, he knew I couldn't stand Steve Allen.
Okay.
So he gave me Steve Allen's number as if Steve had called.
Okay.
I don't remember if the note said
so
Steve
you
Allen.
just like call.
And I called
Steve
this number.
Called.
Steve called.
Okay.
That must have been it. And they go, Steve, I'm returning Steve's call. Steve Allen? And then Steve Allen, and we all laughed. These were the kind of pranks you did back before
on Comic Strip Live.
This is the kind of prank you did before there was a videotape.
Yeah, I didn't get on Comic Strip. I actually auditioned for Comic Strip Live and didn't get it.
Comic Strip Live,
because when I got here when I was 20 to town, I realized that I have no. It's like my act works great doing 45 minutes in Omaha. But like when I had to break it down to 10-minute sets, I had like fucking nothing I could stand behind.
That's so weird, and that's so weird. But it's such an interesting way of learn. In other words, like you couldn't have imagined there'd be no way that you would know what your act was like in shorter.
Yeah, no,
you know,
it's
like,
I mean that's part of what I was talking about earlier about the difference of like if you start in LA, it's like your paradigm is 10-minute sets kind of.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like for me it was like no, my paradigm is, you know, the funny bone, you know, or whatever I was doing at that time, and it's like, you know, so much of my act was about the Midwest and being on the road and all of this shit that, like, you know, when you take it apart, there's just nothing to it. It crumbles to dust.
Now, was it rough on you when you went through that, or you knew that?
Well, it was yes and no. I mean, I came out here with the stated goal of being a writer and getting a writing job.
Right. Did you have a job before you got here?
Mystery Science I did in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
So I came out with a credit, you know.
Right.
A couple credits.
And by the way, when you come out and you go through the main act comedy union, you do put your credits up on the bulletin board. I'm sorry, this was weak. I was trying to compare show business to college.
All right.
So you came out here.
I came out here and you know, with the stated sort of goal of being a writer. And that was mostly because people used to see my act and go, "You're a good writer," which I knew was like, "You're not a good performer." But I still wanted to be a star, you know, at that point. You know, I still sort of harbored this stand-up dream, but I also knew by that point that I was a standout joke writer and not a standout stand-up.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, I feel like when I first started, I was like, I think I over-exaggerate how terrible I was. But then again, there's not enough, thank God there's not a lot of video presence of me.
Well, but I mean, when I first started seeing you, which was 20 plus years ago now, your whole act was built on self-sabotage.
Right, but that was already 8 years in.
Right.
And those were rough years.
Right.
It really was rough. But it wasn't rough, but it was like, I think back now, when I think back now, like about starting again and doing it again,
right?
It's like, I don't think I could have gone through what I went through knowing what it was if they said, okay, now tomorrow you will have the indignancy of.
Yeah, but you also, you know, you have to build in the level of ambition you had at that time. Like, yeah, I did 40 states by the time I was 20, you know.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I did that now. You know, I can't believe that I had the ambition and the energy and like the bravery, you know, to like go walk into bars underage and do a half hour, you know.
Well, that's when you were a prodigy.
Well, I wasn't a prodigy because, you know, I topped out so low. I don't think you can call it a prodigy.
Yeah, but I would say you're a prodigy because you started out in a field that you already felt like you could do it in a way.
Right.
You know, and you wanted to do it. And
the field also like weirdly accepted me as a peer right away too.
Right.
So I mean, I got the reinforcement. I wasn't going upstream. You know, it's like there was a place for me in this world, like very quickly. So it wasn't like I'm going to make it despite what all these people say. You know, it was more like people going, "Oh, you're pretty good, kid," you know, and then, "Here, now you're a middle. Hey," you know.
Right.
Things went pretty well and smoothly along because there was so much work to be had in those days if you had an act.
Well, that's when I do my stand-up the musical, which I have the songs for.
Right.
I'm going to celebrate that time period like it was Hair.
Life in the middle.
That's right.
But that was the most fun. You know, when I was a headliner, it wasn't as fun. You know, you made a living.
Yeah.
But it was my best times on the road was being $100 a night feature act because I was working with headliners that I liked and that you know were either aspirational or I've considered my peers. You know, but it was like I was learning something. You know?
I really had fun on the road, even though. Reagan was president, and then it was the first Bush.
Right.
So I thought the country was going to hell. But I had so much fun.
Yeah, I got to work with some great... I mean, that's the other thing is like, you know, when you're opening for sometimes great people, you know.
Right.
I got to be friends with Bill Hicks, you know, because I was a middle, you know.
Yeah, I know you were telling me about that. And we both got to know him. And I think I told you I worked for him in a John Yoder gig for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
In 1988 when he had just stopped drinking.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe it. Like I'd never seen anything. He was almost frighteningly good.
Yeah, he was great. I couldn't believe that he wanted to hang. Honestly, it was just like he liked my my Gulf War joke that I had, my Scud missile.
And tell
joke.
people what the
joke was: the Scud missile, a missile you can't aim. How do you sell that? But you can't aim them. Well, so what? You hate everybody.
I love that joke.
As did Bill Hicks. He became my friend.
Yeah, it's really hard for people. Whenever you meet people who haven't seen him, or aren't familiar with him. I mean, it's almost a cliche to say you had to see someone live.
Yeah.
But if you ever did see him live, and I got to see him live, like for that 3-week run, it was like there was nobody who was more themselves on stage. Like he really was amazing in terms of how relaxed he was, and
he was incredibly brave. He wasn't the least bit afraid on stage,
right?
And I wouldn't say he was himself on stage because he was a much more vulnerable dude. I thought off stage and kind of a more innocent kind of guy in a way.
Yeah, that's true.
He was an enthusiastic guy about a lot of stuff. Like when it came to rock and roll, he was like super like kind of starry eyed about it. But on stage, he was totally fearless, and it wasn't just. It wasn't, the jokes that I loved of his were like not the political jokes so much, but just like the incredibly, the brave jokes, the jokes where you could easily lose an audience with that joke if you told it with 1 ounce less confidence,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that joke I've talked about before. Someone was doing an interview about controversial jokes, and there's the joke that he did, which was so unbelievably funny about how he could never understand how that guy could shoot Reagan over Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
But Phoebe Cates, sure. And then he goes through a whole long thing where he's ending up in the chair. I could never pull that off.
When I was working with him, and this was during the Gulf War, like I said, his big joke was, I find myself in the unenviable position of being for the war, but against the troops. And then he would also do. He would talk about. Now I'm doing Bill Hicks bits. That's a good way to go.
That's not a bad way.
No, it's better.
It would
than
be
other
worse as if
people's.
you didn't credit him.
My favorite was at that time was using the idea of using terminally ill people as stunt people in movies.
I don't think I've heard
It's like
that one.
the special effects have gotten so good and the stunts have gotten so outlandish. The only way we're going to be able to push the envelope anymore is if we start using terminally ill people as stunt people. Do you want your grandma lying there alone in her hospital bed, barely able to move, her final heartbeat moving through her translucent skin up her arm to her neck? Or do you want her to meet Chuck Norris?
That's classic. And also, the other one that was classic was you never hear a positive LSD story. They always say like a guy tried to fly.
Right,
because if you wanted to try and fly, why didn't you try from the ground up? Right. You don't see birds getting in elevators.
Yeah, but you never see the story of a man who took LSD, saw the ultimate truth of the universe, and changed his opinion.
And now here's Bob with the weather. Right. He said, we are all energy vibrating at different frequencies. Now here's Bob with the weather. And you can get more of Bill Hicks. I feel like are we a greatest hits comedy station now?
I told you that I did. I have a credit on one of his albums for cover design.
Yeah, now tell me this. Here's the problem with the podcast is that I want the world to know these stories.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you've told this story.
I was working with him in Minneapolis or St. Paul, and he has covered the design of his album Relentless, which is him trudging through the snow with a mic stand, was my idea.
See?
And then he gave me the actual cover idea credit by Josh Weinstein and Bill Hicks.
Why don't I have a cover idea credit?
You should have been a little more creative. More creative.
Well, see, you really were friends with him. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, you were really friends with him, and I was just. It was unbelievable, though. I missed the shows I missed of his was the Igby show One of the final shows.
Yeah.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't. The last time I saw him was at my apartment here in LA, and this friend of mine had sent me this awful VHS tape of bestiality movies, like horrible bestiality porn. And he mailed them to me in this envelope.
I love the way you have to say horrible bestiality porn to
No,
differentiate
it's like really,
from the good bestiality porn.
It was really disturbing.
You know, if it's done tastefully,
It was really disturbing, and
which implies as you watch.
and I'm sure it was illegal of him to mail it to me from Chicago.
That's not legal, probably.
And he labeled it throbbing medical supplies. So I get this tape and I put it in, and literally like 10 minutes later, the phone rings and it's Bill Hicks. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am watching this incredibly awful bestiality tape that this guy sent me." And he's like, "I'll be right over." and he was there within a half hour from West LA, and that was last time I saw him in person was that night.
And you could not have told that story as a eulogy.
No, probably not.
I used to talk about. He's also, a lot of people will be online and they'll be saying like he's an atheist. I don't think he was an atheist. I think he had like a spiritual. He used to take mushrooms like once a year and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, he was a very spiritual.
He was a spiritual
dude.
guy,
and I think he took the higher power part of the AA thing pretty seriously too.
Yeah, I mean, but he did those jokes about the people who came and saw him. Their eyes were so close together, and he talks about, well, we didn't like what you said about Jesus, and he goes, well, then forgive me.
Right. His classic line.
Well, my prediction was that the third show was my favorite show.
Yeah.
But now I also like the show that came out today.
Number 4.
Test show 4.
Yes, with the Seth Rogen story.
Oh my God! I'm almost jealous of not being able to be people first discovering our podcast.
Do you have any stuff coming up that you want to talk about?
Well, here's the thing. 3 weeks ago, you said something that I thought was a very good idea. It was like, let's write down some things on a piece of paper. And I didn't write down anything on a piece of paper, but I had my wedding anniversary. I had my 15th wedding anniversary.
That's right. I remember I was at your wedding.
Yes.
And I know it was during the NBA playoffs because I remember during your ceremony was the Robert Horry shot.
And people were clapping.
There was a huge cheer
and they
during
we were
your
clapping
wedding.
for me as I was walking down the aisle, which I did very well.
You did. You nailed it. You killed.
We had a very nice.
No one could follow you.
We had a lovely meal.
You did.
And we went to a place. I don't know if I can plug this place, and I don't know if I plug it, will they send me something free? But Fig.
Is that where you went for your anniversary?
Yeah, 15th anniversary. It was really, really good.
Nice.
We had fun.
What'd you have?
I had steak. I think I have steak every time I go out to eat. Now I've realized.
Yeah, it's surefire.
Yeah. Oh, do I not want the New York strip? Oh, that sounds good.
Sounds good.
And various other things. It's one of these places where farm to table. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Nice.
I hate when they go, it's not farm to table, it's farm. They stick it in a guy's closet for 3 weeks.
Right. Farm to closet.
Then they put it in the back of a car for another 4 weeks. And then a couple of years later, you don't even know what table it ends up in.
Right.
Is food humor big?
Well, the punchline-based food humor is.
Well, this thing is now... for those of you who've been fans of the show, I'm sorry. We're still auditioning for who's going to be the host, and so please vote.
Yeah, let us know. Also, go on.
What's our email?
If you want to email us, it's thoughtspiralshow@gmail.com. Please don't bother thoughtspiral@gmail.com. Don't bother them. They're nice people.
Oh, there is it's just Thought Spiral Show. And if they come over to the house and said, look, this can't continue.
Please, enough with this flood of negative email going to Thought Spiral. But all the good email goes to thoughtspiralshow@gmail.com.
And how's our newsletter working out?
Our newsletter is almost ready to go to the printer.
Now, if we had a patterned pre-written close, it would be so much easier.
It would.
So it's like I would go, and so until next time... And then you would go continue on like a comedy duo.
Right. Don't forget your ice cream.
Or your galoshes. You've been listening to Thought Spiral. Enjoy the view.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Well, you, I know, are like a maestro when it comes to whatever that word means, knowing exactly where the show should end.
Yeah.